This is the Page Publishing Book Club. Good evening, how you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini, your host, along with Rob Barrett's my engineer. How you doing, Rob? Hope you're enjoying your weekend. I am so glad you stopped by to hang out with us tonight, because we have another group of authors, one of whom just may give you that aha moment you've been looking for. Aha. We love that. It's the aha moment that propels you forward. We have an author who's published her second book, and she has some great advice for first-time authors coming up a little bit later on. We have a woman who submitted a book as soon as she heard the Page Publishing Book Club commercial. How about that, Rob? And we have a guy who wrote about killing viruses on your computer. I love that. That's worth tuning in right there. We begin tonight with a story based on actual events dealing with our not-so-just justice system. David Cooper wrote, Why is she blindfolded? David, who is she?
The lady of the scales who holds the scales of justice. Is she blindfolded to administer justice fairly? Or is it because she's ashamed of what goes on?
What say you, David Cooper?
I said she's totally ashamed because in the halls of justice, the truth means absolutely nothing. No one cares about the truth in our judicial system anymore. There's one equation they care about, and that equation is wins or victories equals notoriety equals money. And I can explain that a little bit further if you wish.
Okay, give me an example.
When the main character was a young prosecutor, we hear so much today about police and the different things that happen, but what people don't hear about is what a policeman has to go through. An actual true case in which the police broke up a fight in a bar where a young barmaid was attacked, and the policeman, along with his backup, went in there. They arrested two brothers, and on the way to get them into the cars, the brothers resisted. They were thrown into the car. Their nose was broken. One of their nose was broken. The other one was injured also. By the time it got to the police station, the boys arrived. The father had already been contacted. He contacted the city attorney and a couple of other people. To make a long story short, this was now going to have the beginnings of a police brutality case and a lawsuit to be filed against the city, in which the defense attorney and the city attorney were all involved. The young attorney in the book was the prosecutor. When he interviewed the police officer, he wanted no part of it. And what he did was he advised the police officer to take it out of the city and to file felony charges, because the others were misdemeanor, which would circumvent the possibility of the filing of the police brutality charges. The prosecutor was dismissed from his position for protecting the police officer.
Now, do you have personal experience with this? Are you a prosecutor?
I went through that.
That's you.
I went through that. That is correct.
Oh, man, David.
Now, I'll tell you one other thing. The book is a novel based upon fact. And what the book says, I don't care what the truth is. I don't care how much you try to protect yourself. I don't care what the facts are. If you are on the wrong side of the political power structure, you're going to lose no matter what you did. Now, in real life, I've gone through 35 years of keeping my mouth shut. Now I'm old enough, I'm opening it by writing the book. I was arrested on 96 counts for claiming embezzlement, grand larceny. I had two attorneys, two partners who represented me. One partner said, let's go to trial on everything because they don't have enough evidence against you. The other partner said, I think I can get you immunity because the real person is the person who was employed by the institution itself, and they never did a background check on him. And we had 18 checks that were processed through my office. Every one of them was deposited by my girls on the day that I was out of town. I had no knowledge of them, and yet they should never have been process, and that's what the final thing boiled down to. They said to me, well, we can prosecute the girls or we'll prosecute you. And I told them my name was on the door and I did not want my girls to be prosecuted. And then I was told, here is the plea deal. You testify the way we want you to, and we'll teach you how to testify what we want you to say. And if you testify the way you want, you'll get immunity. The person who they went after shot himself. Now I'm left holding the bag. In the first book, I just talk about how the whole thing developed. In the second book, I talk about the actual legal proceedings and the trials and everything else. Talk about how you protect yourself to the best of your ability, but it means nothing if you're on the wrong side of the political spectrum. No one cares. You know the sign that says, "We who labor here seek only truth"? No one cares what the truth is because it's an elusive concept. It's not something you can pinpoint. And I'll give you the example that we learned in law school. Let's see, there's an automobile accident. And, you know, there are 4 corners in every intersection. Let's say on each of those corners, 20 feet in the intersection, you had a member of the clergy, impeccable integrity, who serve as witnesses. It would not be unusual for their testimonies to be so different that you'd think they were talking about 4 different instances, yet they're all telling the truth, because that's what they believe. So when it comes down to it, the legal system takes advantage of the fact that no one really knows what the truth is. And the most important thing is to win. There are people sitting in jail today who are not guilty, but they are there because the prosecutor needed a victory. And whatever it took to get that victory, whether it was changing testimony, no matter what it was, that's what the prosecutor will do. And by the way, the defense attorney is no better.
Well, it sounds like David has soured on our justice system a little bit, but he assures me that we still have the best justice system on the planet. It's just a shame that it's become about something other than justice. This, as he mentioned, is one of 2 books on his experience with this particular case. Thanks so much, David. Our next author, Brian Escher, was a CEO and ran 8 or 9 companies, which, you know, is hardly easy, but he says it was nothing compared to what he went through trying to write this book. It's called Rolling Coffins. What's this about, Brian?
Well, it's about my experience as an infantry soldier in the worst year of the Vietnam conflict in 1968. And basically memories of a whole bunch of different experiences I had. And then I was able, through doing research, to put these in chronological order, using mainly the colonel's diaries and officers' diaries of where we were and what we were doing at the time. I actually kind of did research for about 30 years on it, and my sons and some of my close friends and partners were encouraging me to, put down my experiences. And so what I ultimately wound up doing was this last year or so, I figured I'd take the time and pull all my notes together into a narrative and had it published.
What are you hoping readers will take away?
That they understand a little more about what it was actually like being a soldier, being drafted as a 19-year-old and going into combat. It's not like what's in the movies.
I have no doubt about that. Your title, though, is really disturbing, Rolling Coffins.
Well, to some extent, it's truthful. You know, there isn't really many books about grunts or, infantrymen in Vietnam that are actually written by infantrymen. Most of them are written by either officers or by historians who weren't there. And this is a real, almost day-to-day narrative of what it was like to be an infantryman. And the title, Rolling Coffins, I was in an armored infantry unit called the 4th of the 23rd in the 25th Infantry Division. And what we did is we rode around in armored personnel carriers, which were actually aluminum, and we would get blown up on the roads and by rockets, and we actually used them as fighting vehicles. And We called them rolling coffins because once they were hit by a rocket or a mine, they would blow up and kill anyone inside. And so we wrote on top, and we called them the rolling coffins.
Oh my gosh, Brian, that is disturbing. How's your experience been with Page? And
Well, went through a little bit of a rough time with the editing and so forth because it's the first book I ever wrote, and I really was not very, I didn't really understand exactly how the process worked and so forth. And it was great. They did a great job on the formatting and the cover. And other than that, as a first-time author, it was a little bit challenging. I didn't realize all that it entailed to get a book published.
any advice for first-time authors?
Yeah, just plan on about a year to get something published. I'm a businessman. I'm used to getting things done quickly, and I guess it just doesn't go quickly as what I thought it would be. It's a lot more tedious to get a book published than I thought.
No doubt, writing is not easy. It's a commitment for sure, but it's like anything else, once you do it, it feels good. Our next author wrote about something you might be able to relate to. Pete Moulton wrote, How to Kill Viruses on Your Computer for Everyday Users. Pete, I just have one question before we get started. If I thought I had a virus, why wouldn't I just Google it?
Well, if you Google, you're going to get a lot of advice. Some of it's helpful, but most of it is not necessarily that helpful. If you pick up the book, it's going to focus on tools that work and that have been used a lot in terms of removing viruses. One of the things you discover with the book is that just not one tool does the whole job. You really need to do several and attack it from different aspects. Not all virus is a general name. Mostly today what I'm finding is bad software. It's malicious software, stuff that throws up advertising, tries to take over your computer, your browser, promises to do good things to your computer, but really does malicious things by having the cure be worse than the actual disease itself.
So some of these virus fixes are actually more of the bad stuff.
They put so much load on your computer that it really slows it down and makes it so that it doesn't work very effectively. So the prevention is worse than the disease.
Is this what you do for a living, is fix computers?
I sure do.
Okay. Did you just base this book on all of the people who walk into your place every day complaining and whining about their computers?
Well, I don't know that they complain and whine, but, they definitely have problems. Things are going slow, or there's bad stuff happening there, or their computer's being held ransom where you can't get into it unless you pay money and, all that stuff, yeah.
Your computer is being held ransom?
Yeah. There's a ransomware type of virus, and what it does is it locks the people out of the computer using Internet Explorer and demands that you pay money. And they want it in cash. And, of course, some people fall for that. I think the percentage I saw was about 3%. But, if they get the cash, what's the incentive for them to unlock your computers? There's none. So it's a little bit rarer now because virus scanning software is caught up and really catches that stuff and prevents it. But there was a time there where people would come in periodically and they'd be locked out of their computer.
Do you make your book required reading for customers?
No. I'm just really easy going. What people do with their computers, what they do. I mean, this is just to be helpful and guide them and, help them solve problems or get rid of the issues that they have with their computer not working well. But it's set up so that a casual user can, use some of the tools that are there. And the computer world changes daily almost. But there's tools there that they can use. And if they just use a couple of them, that might get them through a situation, and even the most naive user might be able to solve a problem. But if you want to go into depth, if you got a real problem and you're kind of a techie, well, there's some reasonable guidance in terms of how to dig through some of these things, and it gives you an approach to look at how I might, really get rid of some of the stuff that's troubling me with my computer. There's no perfect solution in terms of of getting rid of viruses or spyware or malicious software. What you have to do is you have to be fairly vigilant and use a few tools and do a little bit of maintenance work on your computer. And if you read the book, you'll find out some tools that will help you do that. And if you do a little bit of maintenance and use some of those tools, you might go for a year or two without having a big issue. But nothing is perfect, all right? So, the things change all the time. So there's no, absolute fortress or stuff that will prevent you from having bad software because, nothing's perfect. And things are so enticing. There's always something new around the corner.
Well, thanks for your honesty, Pete. I mean, nothing's perfect. We all know that, but this book could help. I have no patience with computers. You wanna hold my computer hostage? Go right ahead. I'm not even going to pay you any money. So thanks for writing this, Pete. At least you try and give us a place to start when a virus invades. We got to take a quick break. Take a stretch, grab something to drink, and come right back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Antoinette Kalwanson is proof. Advertising works. She wrote Charge It to My Heart. Tell us why, Antoinette.
I've written poetry since I was at the age of 6. I'm now 53, and it was last year that I heard an advertisement for Page Publishing on the radio, so I took a shot and gave him a call, and I spoke to Richard Romer first and found out all the particulars after getting on the internet and asking for an author submission kit, and things just snowballed from there.
You basically had this book ready to go.
Oh, yeah. I knew exactly how many poems I had, that it was enough, for a book. Even though I hesitated quite a bit to even let anyone read my poetry, like ever, before this.
Yeah.
I had a lot of encouragement, and there's one psychologist said to me, if one poem in your book helps one person feel less lonely, then it's all worth it. So that has always been in my head and gave me a driving force to actually share.
Is that what your poems are about?
They're a lot about imagination as a child, love, loss, frustration. It kind of encompasses a lot of emotion. And as an adolescent, I think I felt a little lonely, struggling with bipolar disorder. I felt quite different.
Yeah,
But I have an awesome family. The family support was always there. And even during my major depressive disorders or my major manic attack, they didn't exactly, put me in a psych ward and throw away the key. So That was major. Actually, I Googled myself and boom, there was my book.
Nice. Doesn't that feel good?
Oh my God, it was the weirdest day. But I'll tell you, the day that Richard Romer called me after I sent him every poem in the mail that I had, and he called me and he said, Antoinette, your poems are publishable. I was actually driving at the time. I had to pull over and say, Richard, could you please repeat that? I have goosebumps even talking about it now. That was an awesome day.
Oh, I love stories like this, Antoinette. Page Publishing, making dreams come true. By the way, Antoinette has 52 more poems ready to go for her second book, so we're going to be talking to her again real soon. Are you a cruiser? Well, Mike Stein has written a book called Everything You Should Know About Cruising. So what do you know about cruising?
What do I know about it? I've been on about 50 or more all over the world as a travel writer and as a passenger.
Who do you write for?
Newspaper travel sections, magazines. I'm an academic as well. I've been a a university professor at 2 universities. I've written some academic books. I've written travel books and travel articles.
So what is it that we need to know about cruising?
It's written primarily for people who haven't cruised or just perhaps taken one cruise. And it tells everything, how to book a cruise, where to go, what to do once aboard, what to do when you reach ports of call.
Are there any common mistakes that travelers make?
When they go ashore and shopping and so forth, so they're not taken advantage of, and know where they want to go for the most part. You know, if they're experienced, they can go on their own. If not, it's better to go with a travel expert. They have all kinds of excursions on ships, and before you go, they'll send you what the excursions are, and you can pick one out and make arrangements before you even get on the ship. Virtually all cruises have ports of call, and that's the reason many people take a cruise, to see different parts of the world. Although there are some cruises that are strictly on the ocean for the most part. For example, there are excursions from New York by Cunard, which is one of the ships that'll take you from New York City to London. A cruise is a very pleasant experience. You're supposed to enjoy yourself on it. They do all sorts of things to enhance your enjoyment. Broadway shows, orchestras. There's always something to do. I've been on ships where there were hypnotists.
I'm curious, why did you pick Page?
Well, it's kind of a different publishing company than I've been used to. I've had 14 books published before I went to Page on different subjects. It's not exactly a self-publishing company. They seem to be interested in the book, and if they're interested in the book, then I'm interested in them.
All right, I just want to ask you one last question. What would you say to people who are afraid to go on cruises?
Simply go on a shorter cruise first.
Okay.
See how you like it, and talk to people, friends, perhaps, who've been on cruises, get their impressions. Read as much as they can about cruising. There's really nothing to be frightened of. The ships are huge. Bouncy seas are very rare because ships, they take routes that avoid bad weather and so forth. But I think most people who go on a cruise, there are many, many, many repeaters. I remember one woman, she'd been on the same cruise line for 45 to 50 cruises.
That's a lot of cruising.
It's a one-stop hotel. Everything is there for you. Your food, your entertainment, your shore excursions, to see the world. It's a very comfortable atmosphere.
All right, Mike, I will take your word for it. I have to confess, I have never been on a cruise, okay? But no, Rob, I've never been on a cruise. But maybe I'll go on one now. Our next author I talked to way back when the Page Publishing Book Club was just getting started. Her name is Susan Caleb, and I talked to her when she wrote Inchworm, Inchworm, and now she's back with another children's book. It's called Lucky the Duck. So you're sticking with that children's book theme.
Hi, Alice. Oh, this one is about a duckling that was actually found by my friend at Livingston Mall in Livingston, New Jersey, and we found out it was a she later, had just hatched. And people were walking by, and my friend went over, picked up the duckling, and brought it back to the farm where it was raised. This duckling had more adventures in one summer than I think most animals have in their whole lifetime sometimes. Actually, the first adventure started with being left alone and how she actually went looking for us because you could hear her paddling across the floor. And then the adventure continued with the cat, protecting her from the dog that came to visit, and the hawk that was always hungry.
That must have been dangerous.
Yes, actually, the duckling, as she grew up, maneuvers very nicely, especially under the bridges.
You went with Paige a couple of years ago for your first book. And how did you make out with your first book?
Very well. Very well.
Can you tell first-time authors the best way to get books out, the word out about your books?
Well, I used Facebook. I used word of mouth. My friends also were very good in giving me feedback and writing reviews.
Did you do book signings or anything like that?
No. But I'm hoping with this one I will.
Where will you go?
Barnes and Nobles. And if there are other little bookshops around, I'm going to ask them, see if they're willing to do it. But a lot of it has to be a lot of legwork on our part because the publishers can only do so much.
And I think a lot of writers find that frustrating.
Yes. Especially when you have a lot of other things going on in your life, in the daily life.
Right. And aren't you a teacher, as I recall? Are you a teacher?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So you're busy, but you managed to get enough word out about Inchworm to feel like people were reading it and people knew about it.
Yes. Actually, I think with Page Publishing, I've seen better results with Page Publishing than with the other publishers that I was with.
Why?
I don't know. I think Page Publishing really worked with me. And it's also finding a publisher is also very difficult. You have to it's hard to find the one that's going to be your fit. And I was lucky because my friend heard about Page Publishing on the radio one day, and she called me up and she said, why don't you give them a try? And I did.
So what would be the one piece of advice you would have for first-time writers?
Keep writing no matter what. If it's something you enjoy, just keep at it, and everything will fall into place when it's supposed to. But never give up.
When it's supposed to, not when you think you're supposed to.
Yes, it's when it's supposed to.
Great. Susan, it's so nice to talk to you again.
You too, Allison. Great hearing from you and talking with you again.
All right, Susan, I hope you have as much luck, get it, with Lucky the Duck as you did with Inchworm. I think Susan offers some really valuable insight here. I don't think we can emphasize enough how important it is for you to tell people about your book. Your book is your baby, right? Who knows your baby better than you do? Nobody. Who's going to care for your baby better than you are? Nobody. Nobody can talk about your baby better than you can. Paige does a lot. But as Susan said, you have to really put in some time and do some legwork on your own book. Okay, that is all the time we have for tonight. Please come back next week. And unless there's a Mets game, we're going to be here for you right here on 710 WOR. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for everything. Thank you. Have a great weekend and write something down.